Hi, everybody, and welcome to the first office hours for OMS-CS 6300 fall session of 2018. And I'm here as it will become soon a tradition with Erin and Will, my head TAs, and you saw them quote unquote on Piazza, and you'll see much more of them throughout the semester. So I'm gonna quickly let Erin and Will introduce themselves. Then I'll make some announcements, and then we can get into the kind of the main part of the office hours, which are your questions and our answers.
All right. Well, I'll go first. Hi, I'm Will. I'm the senior head TA because I've been here longer, but I'm also the one that doesn't know as much. So when you actually want somebody who knows what they're talking about, talk to Erin. But the other thing is I'm usurping her right now because she has a fun habit of wearing funny T-shirts during these things, and she is not wearing one today, as you'll see in a moment, but I am. So I just thought I'd show you my T-shirt for no particular reason, because normally we end up showing Erin shows hers.
Oh,
So
wow. I hadn't seen that one before. That's pretty different. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so welcome to the class. Erin, your turn.
Yeah. Sadly, I'm still in work clothes today, which is always a good sign for the day. I did wear geeky circuit boards, though. Not that they're very visible. Okay, I usually am giving updates and stuff about the assignments. You'll see probably far too much of me here, and I believe that my cat got the pre-office hours snack in time and has gone to sleep, so should be a quiet office hours from here.
Right, because normally we see, Erin's cat kind of crawling all over the keyboard, and so on, which makes for more interesting office hours. So first of all, I have to say I'm very happy. So a couple of things. Erin and Will have been, TAing for this class for I think 20 years at this point. So they're really, senior or very experienced. TAs for the class. We've been teaching this class since 2014, I believe, and so this is it's been 4 years, so a number of semesters. We teach it every semester, and I'm very happy to see that we have 30 people attending the office hours live, because we just had a summer session that was pretty sad in terms of attendance, and I think part was that we were all for dinner, which makes a difference, and part of it is also that the summer is sort of a slower semester to some extent. So anyways, the office hours are one of my favorite parts of the class, because it's the only pseudo-interactive part of the class, and so I'm very happy to see people here. Hopefully this is going to be 30 people today, and it's not going to be like 5 people next time, because they realize these office hours are horrible. So we'll try to make them good for you, so that you come back for us.
Can I throw a couple of things out real quick?
Of course.
2 things I want to throw out. First of all, you may have already noticed that Alex's audio is kind of breaking up slightly. Occasionally, Alex has to travel during these things. When it happens, Erin and I will try to either get him to restate what he said, or if we know what he was going for, we will try to translate for you. Because this is the problem with hotel rooms. Sometimes the internet is not as good as it could be. The other thing I was going to say is about the office hours. Please watch them, because we sometimes say things in the office hours that don't get said elsewhere, and then somebody complains, well, I didn't hear about that. You're supposed to watch the office hours as part of the class, so please do. Now back to Alex.
All right, Erin, do you want to say something as well, or?
You kind of broke up there, which is why I wanted to bring that up, because you were kind of breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, he was giving timely advice there. I guess as kind of a general introduction, we usually give you a grading update during office hours. That's one thing you definitely get during office hours that is a little bit less so otherwise. We usually have a TA meeting beforehand, and we'll let you know the status of that. I already saw one question about grades coming back. So normally we aim for about 2 weeks turnaround. Realize some of the assignments take an awful lot of manual grading. Some of the assignments less so. The first 2 or 3 are not so bad. So we'll give you the updates. If you're counting down like the day after they're due, you're gonna
be counting for a while.
Gonna try your patience a bit.
Yeah, I should also say
them about 2 weeks later.
One of the reasons they always seem to take longer than intended is obviously one of the things we strive for and put an awful lot of effort into is making sure that your grade is based entirely on your work and not based on which TA you happen to draw. So we spend an awful lot of time making sure that the grades are normalized across the TAs, that, you know, whichever TA you grabbed, your score would have been as close as possible to exactly the same score. That takes some time. So sometimes when stuff doesn't get back to you quickly, it means we've had a statistical blip, and we want to make sure that that the statistical blip is legitimate and not, oh, gee, somebody is just being really, really tough or somebody missed something. So I know sometimes it takes a while to get back, but on the other hand, we're making sure they're fair grades, which I think we all agree is a good thing.
All right. Second all that, and yeah, and especially for the grade, I have to say, I'll say it in advance, the biggest criticism that we get in the survey at the end of the semester is always about the time it takes to return the grades. So I want to second what Will said in terms of it is true that, you know, sometimes, you know, it takes us some time, but that's one of the main reasons. And also, you know, every semester we try to improve. So we'll try this semester as well. So feel free to let us know if you feel like, you know, the grades are taking too long. But keep in mind also that, you know, one of the reasons, not because, you know, the TAs are slacking or we're just not paying attention, it's mostly because, you know, sometimes it just happens that, you know, you get the grades, there's too much divergence, and so we need to go and look back at those. And we don't want to get to the point in which we have sort of a multiple choice assignments or anything like that. So that's why, unfortunately, our assignments are in many cases hard to grade, and they need you know, a lot of manual work, and that's what makes them late. And in fact, you know, the situation is the same for my on-campus classes, and here it's just amplified by the fact that the class is larger. We have more TAs and more variability across TAs.
That's the thing. On campus, you have, you know, possibly 1 or 2 TAs. So if you've got one TA grading everything, it's fair because they did it the same as themselves. When you've got 10 TAs grading this many students, there's a lot more that we have to put into making sure they're homogeneous.
I might have put us on a bit of a dismal track. Like you said, we're always trying to improve. I just wanted to get us started on at least the 2-week expectation and not like be late before we're even aiming for it to be out.
No, I know, but it's if history is any guide of anything, we're going to be later than 2 weeks on a few of them anyway. And so I thought I'd at least let people know why it happens when it happens.
Okay.
All right.
We actually have questions this time, so.
Right. So, and in terms of announcements, a couple of things I want to mention. So one is I mentioned, make sure to read the welcome message. So Will was mentioning, watching the office hours. We put a lot of effort into the welcome message, and we also kind of worked on it and improved it over the semester. So it should really contain a lot of the information and answer a lot of the questions that you will have about the class, at least initially. So please, if you post a question on Piazza, please first make sure, especially if it's about the way the class works, make sure to read the welcome message and check whether it's not already answered there. Second thing is use Piazza wisely, which means, first of all, keep up with Piazza. So we keep up with Piazza, so we are pretty much sure that we all look at all the posts. I mean, I try to look at all the posts, even if I don't answer all of them myself, so that I can see what's going on in Piazza, and I see what kind of questions are asked and what kind of answers are given. First of all, you will get information that is useful for your assignments, and second, you will avoid asking duplicate questions. With a class with 450 people as we have now, it's even kind of small noise can really kind of slow down things a lot. So even just if 10 people posting duplicate questions just require somebody to go there, identify them as duplicate, reading more messages and so on. So if you use Piazza wisely, it will be more efficient and effective for everybody. And also try to be two things. One, to be efficient on Piazza. So try not to post like 3-page questions, because I mean, in some cases it's necessary to provide context. In some other cases, one can be much more concise. So it's, again, being concise and being straight to the point allows for quicker answers. Feel free to answer questions from other students, so don't be shy. If you answer incorrectly, we're always happy to jump in and fix that. But I think one of the beautiful things about Piazza is the fact that it really allows collaboration and allows students to help each other. So that's great. Second thing, use Piazza in the right way. Like, for example, I saw several examples already of people using the student's answer for follow-ups. A student's answer is for student's answer. So if you need to post a follow-up, use a follow-up. Or similarly, students using follow-ups to answer. If you think you have an answer to a question, just put it in the student answer, because that makes it very easy for us, if the answer is correct, to just click an endorsement and be done. And the other, let me see. Yeah, these are really the two main things. So follow-ups in follow-ups, students answer in the students answer, and also don't be shy and try to answer other students' questions, because that's part of the fun. I think that's all I want to say. I don't want to go through the whole welcome message and the main points. So it's all there. There is a syllabus. There's going to be some controversy about the Friday night deadline. There is always, and by the end of the semester, there's always somebody posting a survey. What do you think about the deadline? So I can tell you, and actually I'm preparing a set of quotes from videos from students. Many students start being skeptical and then they like it. I just want to stress the fact that, because one of the typical complaints we get is like, oh, I like to work during the weekend, and in this way I can't. No, you can, because the assignment is released at the beginning of the weekend, so you can use the whole weekend to work on it. It's just that you're going to use the weekend before and not the weekend after, which I claim, and it's better. It's better for you, because by Monday you should have a pretty good start, if not be done with the assignments. Then you have the whole week to ask stuff on Piazza and so on and so forth. So anyways, try it out and see. There's already a thread discussing that. And we're going to try to release assignments a little early for the ones that we can. I posted information about why we cannot release early some of the assignments. And so there's very practical reasons. And I also feel strongly about the fact that we do need one assignment a week because of the kind of amount of material that we cover. So we're going to try to release stuff a little early so that people can plan better, but we cannot do it for many assignments. And also because we change the assignments every semester. We don't want to repeat assignments. It takes some time also for us to prepare the assignments. So normally we prepare them. Actually, Erin is the assignment czar at this point. So she normally prepares the first version of the assignments. She has some other TA to try it and do it. I normally also make a pass. And so that's also why we cannot release everything too early, because it takes some time. So as in the same way in which you have to solve an assignment a week, we have to prepare an assignment a week. So it's if it's tough for you, it's tough for us as well. So you work in families and we work in families. So it's imagine that that the week you're working on assignment X, we are working on assignment X+1. So we try to finish early, but sometimes we just don't manage to do it. But for example, for A2, I believe it's ready. So we're just going to need to kind of double check it, and so we might be able to release that a little early. Anyways, enough talking. So I'm going to go and look at your questions so that we can get started on those. Okay, let me start with the first one. Will office hours normally be hosted at this time every week? So I think we're going to try to have office hours in the after dinner. So in 9, I will say 9:30. Just because we realize that that's the time that works tend to work better. I understand that there's people in multiple time zones, so of course nothing can work well for everybody, but for at least some part of the population, including ourselves, this time tends to work reasonably well. So we're going to try to hold them there. We try to have them on Thursday or on Wednesday or Thursday. And normally, we used to have them always on Wednesday. Sometimes there's, due to traveling, we cannot do it. So, but, we're going to play by ear a little bit. But it should be, for sure, we're going to have office hours every week. And most likely, they're going to be after dinner. And for sure, they're going to be either Wednesday or Thursday. Some weeks we might have them on Tuesday if we can. Speaking of which, I think next week I'm traveling Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So probably we're going to have them on Wednesday because it's the only night in which I'm in a stable place. But you'll see an announcement, and we try to post the announcements early on so you can post questions. Okay, will it be recorded for later? Okay, this was the answer, and actually this is without putting anybody on the spot, but this is a typical example of welcome message. Information is provided in the welcome message. We say that clearly there, so there shouldn't be any need to ask for it. Can you please explain what a conflict is and how to handle them in Git, especially for assignment 2 part 3? Why will editing my info txt create a conflict when you push it to remote repository, and why will we have to pull changes from remote repository, and how to handle the conflict? I'm a bit confused about the conflict concept. So a conflict happens when you have multiple people working on the same artifact, the same file, and one of them, so they make conflicting they modify the same file, and one of them pushes their changes to the remote repository. So at this point, as you can imagine, if I modify file foo and you modify the file foo, when there's a conflict because our changes are on the same file. So the reason why you have a conflict there is because in the second part of the assignment, you pushed some changes to a file, to the myinfo file, and on part 3, before getting those changes, you modify the file, further modify the file. So at this point, if you try to push it, the remote repository will tell you, hey, hold on, I have a newer version of this file. And so you first have to get that version, and then you can send me yours. And when you get that version, since the same parts of the file were modified, you will have a conflict. And so at that point, necessarily you need some manual work to figure out what the conflict is and how to resolve it. And once you have done that, you can then push your version. So again, 2 people are modifying the same resource. One of them pushes the resource. And so when you try to push your modifications, they're going to be conflicting with the ones that are already in the repository. So you have to handle the situation. So I hope that helps explaining. Otherwise, feel free to follow up. How does the git pull command work, and when should we be pulling? Should the pull always complement the push when there are multiple users like in the assignment? Do you need to immediately pull when you clone a repository? So I see that there's an answer, so I'm going to look at that. The git pull is essentially done to ensure you have the latest copy of the master branch, or any other branch, really. In other words, your master branch is like the branch which is actually getting deployed, or where the entire project is being run from. Whatever changes you make to the master, those changes can be reflected in the application or project. You always have to make sure you pull the code from the master branch so that you get whatever changes the other users have done in your branch, namely the branch you're working on. Regarding push and pull, it's always best to first pull the latest and then push your changes to the branch. When you clone the repository, you will have the latest changes made to the master branch, so there is no need for you to pull, unless you're working on a project with commits and merging to the masters happening every minute or so. So this is a good answer. Except for the fact that, again, you don't necessarily need to focus on the master branch, because you can pull and push to different branches. But the key point is really that you need to pull to get the latest version of something. And so normally before you start working on a repository, on a specific branch, you will pull from the repository to make sure you have the latest version, and then you will start working on that. And then when you're done, you will push your changes to make sure that they get to the repository. And as Sriram said, there is no need to pull right after you clone, because normally you already got all the changes from the repository. What do you view as of the biggest setbacks of Git? Or another way of viewing it, what does Git not do a good job at solving? From personal experience, binary files. I'm just unsure if there are other issues I've yet to face. I think Git is like a very powerful tool, and like all very powerful tools can be misused. So I find that Git works very well when you just use it in a disciplined way. You can really hurt yourself with Git. For example, if you start doing push forces, if you start rewriting history. So in a sense, it's a complex and sophisticated version control system, and also to hurt yourself in many ways. And the other thing is, like, if you really want to master all the different aspects of Git, it's complicated, it's complex, so it can take some time. Short of that, I mean, I know there's many people who hate Git, and I respect that. I personally love Git. I mean, I love most kind of the distributed version control system, because they allow you to do things that other kind of more traditional version control systems don't allow you to do. So I like it. I've been in situations in which I don't understand what's going on, and I end up having to reclone the whole repository and basically figuring out by hand what happens. I know I'm not the only one in this situation, so I will say the complexity of Git, it's strength, but also probably one of its weaknesses. I never experienced particular problems with binary files. In the for systems, they're hard to version. So normally what the systems do is just make a copy of the whole thing. But I don't know if there's a way around that. Assuming that that's what you meant.
Yeah, to add to that, I think some of the issues I've run into have been more with like GitHub or GitLab than Git itself. Like, for example, GitHub makes everything public by default. People don't pay attention to that. They put amazing things in those repositories that shouldn't be there. And also sometimes can conflict with each other, and that can get a little bit difficult. I just read an article about somebody who didn't like the habit some people have of rebasing constantly from master, and I could see a point in that. It was kind of a nice read. But it seems to be easier to recover than the previous repositories I've used. So it does take a while to figure that out, or like writing a repository grader.
Okay, now let me go back to the questions. Why the transition from Eclipse to IntelliJ? I'm a fan of the switch, but I'm curious of the motives. That's a good question, Ken. Trying to remember what all the motives were, because we did it a few semesters ago. So, and I did it also for myself. So one of the reasons is for sure that I hate to say this, but I find IntelliJ idea to be a little more streamlined than Eclipse. I used to be a huge fan of Eclipse, but then I find things to be a little cleaner in IntelliJ idea. And I found that Eclipse became a little too messy. The other reason, another reason is kind of indirect reason, is that we also do Android development in the class, and since Android moved away from Eclipse, and it's now basically the official IDE is Android Studio. Android Studio is built on an IntelliJ idea, so we thought that for the student it was easier to use pretty much the same platform in both cases, rather than have to learn two different platforms. In fact, initially we had Eclipse and the Eclipse with the Android plugin, and then we moved to IntelliJ IDEA plus Android Studio. And just in general, I gut feeling, I started using both, and I ended up liking better IntelliJ IDEA. I think at this point it's better maintained than what Eclipse is, and so that's another reason why we switched. And Erin and Will, if you can remember other reasons why we switched that I might have forgot, please
I think the
jump in.
Android was a big one. I took the class when we used the Android plugin in Eclipse, and that was a horrendous setup. And the emulators aren't getting a lot better for the Eclipse plugins, and they're improving dramatically for the Android Studio. And just the speed on the emulator is such a huge factor when you're doing that work. I actually still like Eclipse for the Java work, but I use it at work, so you get used to one.
Yeah, and Eclipse is still, and by the way, kudos to IBM for supporting Eclipse. Eclipse was a great platform also for research because of the plugin infrastructure. So there was a lot of research built on that. So it's great, and it's been great. I know somehow I feel like IDEA is a little more modern at this point. Or maybe it's just that we like, to try new stuff because we're geeks. And that's another possibility. Okay, I have a quick question about how to use Git to go back to a specific development phase. As suggested in assignment 2, the codes below will help. But you also mentioned that Git push -- force is not recommended. Just wondering, going further in the course, if we need to go back, what would you suggest us to do? Definitely not force. So force is something you should use never for this class, except for resetting your repo for assignment 2, and rarely in your life. In the sense that the beauty of version control systems is that they allow you to go back to a specific version without having to erase history. So if you realize that you did something wrong and your current version is has a problem, you can just do just check out a previous version and just work on that, and then recommit it and so on and so forth. So you need to do a push force for that. But I'm sorry, I was missing the fact that there's a student's answer. So let me read that as well. If you have been committing frequently, you should be able to branch off a previous hash. Unlike assignment 2, it is more common to simply create a new branch and leave the mistakes on a dead branch to be cleaned up later. Branch creation is cheap, and oftentimes fixing mistakes is more safely done by branching off a good commit and moving forward rather than resetting anything. There are other strategies, but this is probably the simplest. From my experience, a git reset -hard is only necessary under rare circumstances. For assignment 2, they just needed the git tree to be perfect for the autograder. Should have read this first because I couldn't have said it better. So very good answer, Ken. I second all of that. So going back by checking out a new version and put it on a new branch is go to a version that worked, and then move forward from there. Another question: when can we expect to see updated videos on IntelliJ IDEA? Will there be some test files like in the Linda video that we can try out before assignment 3 gets released? Updated videos. I've been trying to do that for some time, and in fact, I did it for Android. The problem is that doing it in an official way, it's very painful because you basically need to go back to a studio, record, do video editing. So we're not going to do that. I will try to do the video myself in a, kind of in an office setting, just by recording myself and the screen. And I will try to do it, this week, because otherwise it will be useless. If I cannot make it, well, just because you need the right, setting. So you need to be, in a place where there's no noise. It's ideally you want to have a mic and so on. So, for example, I cannot do it while I'm traveling, and also you need to have a decent amount of time in which you can work uninterrupted, and that's believe it or not, it's also hard to find. So normally I end up doing this stuff at 1 o'clock in the morning. So let's see. I'm gonna try, and hopefully I will make it. Having said that, it's I'm not sure that is, and I'm happy to do it, but I'm not sure it is necessary, in the sense that the Linda videos are perfectly fine. Actually, they do a very good job at showing how IntelliJ IDEA works. There's tons of resources online that you can watch as well. And in the end, so what matters most is really the general concept of how you create a project, how do you compile it and run it, which is very similar in the two IDEs. But again, nevertheless, I will try to prepare the video. The other question is that will there be some test files that we can try out before assignment 3 gets released? So actually, when we release assignment 3, you will have to create some test cases, and also we will provide some test cases that you can run on your code. So I guess the answer is yes, there will be some test cases that, I don't know what you mean by you can try out. There will be some test cases that come with the assignments, and there will be a starting point for what you have to do. In addition to that, when you're done with the assignments, we'll also provide additional test cases that you can run that are also the ones that we will use for grading. But you'll see all of that when you read the assignment. Next question, after I clone a repository that already have branches, and then inside the clone local repository, I perform a checkout to one of these branches, I received a message. Branch proof set up to track remote branch experimental from origin. Switch to a new branch proof. Okay, I suppose the branch was already created but not tracked. It is good to assume that the checkout to that branch will be enough to work on that branch, or will I need to do something else so the branch will be tracked? If I understand correctly the question, I'm 99.9% sure that when you do the checkout, you're creating the connection between your local branch and the one remotely. So that's all you need to do. Erin and Will, please correct me if I'm saying something wrong, but I believe that that's really all you need to do is just checking it out.
It should be good, assuming that the branches were already on the remote. Something looks a bit off in that error message. I don't know if, oh, there it is. They fixed the word. Branch proof set up to track remote branch proof.
Yeah.
So they were changing the branch names. They should have all been identical. Yeah, that seems fine because it's saying that it already sees that branch in the origin being like the remote repository. So they should be all synced up.
Yeah, right. Basically, this message. In fact, you're right. That the proof and experimental was a little weird, but all this is telling you is that you link the two branches. Now. Was that?
You can see we're reading Piazza live if we change while we're looking at it.
Magic. It's the magic of technology. Any book or books recommended for the class? I think there were some threads about possible books. Honestly, I hate to say I don't have any. So many books that I worth. It's not worth reading, in my opinion. I don't want to necessarily kind of list the books I don't think are worth reading. I find that nowadays it's somehow better, or not better, but it's also good to just look at the resources, specific resources online, and there's so much, and they change so often that I can kind of resisting a little bit in providing a list, because something that is a great entry for something on this semester might be immediately updated next semester or vice versa. So I have my list, but I keep updating it. So at the end, it's in the end, I mean, I don't, I kind of prefer not to necessarily share that. Books, I think any software engineering book will be good as a starting point if you don't have a software engineering background. So there's like and many books in the area, and then there's specific books like books on Java development, books on Android development, and so on. So I think what we can do is that the best thing to do will probably be, I would recommend you to start a post on Piazza with the same question. And then I'm happy to provide my recommendation, but also I'd like to see other students' recommendation, because I think one of the great things about having a class with 450 people is that you can leverage the experience of 450 people. I will mention the books that I particularly like, that are there are some especially about software development that I think are very, very useful, and then other students can provide their books as well. So please start a post, and then everybody can contribute to, will be able to contribute to that one. Next question: how does an autograder works? Normally poorly, in our experience. No, it's it works. It depends. It depends.
This is easy for both Alex and me to say, because the person who makes them work is the third member of our triumvirate here.
No, I have to say, I think
my lesson. I mean, we keep trying, but I have learned that is far harder than it seems like it ought to be.
So I think I built the first autograde, if I remember correctly, for assignment 4. That was our first foray into autograding, and we thought that we had like a perfect setting, because you'll see we basically require that you put specific IDs on the widgets so that we can call them automatically and so on. And that was pretty much a disaster. I think it took us like 6 months to grade that assignments, because we kept going back to the fixing the autograder. Many assignments weren't going through. So to make a long story short, the way, if you're asking about the mechanics of an autograder, normally what an autograder does is checking out the code, compiling it, and running some tests of some kind against the code, and checking the results. There can be other kinds of autograders. There might be autograders that, for example, look for something specific in the code. But the basic idea is really you take the code, you compile it, and you test it in some form. So that's those are the typical autograders. That's also the reason why we cannot have autograders for all of our assignments, because some of them are not automatable. Another example is that assignment 2, for the Git one, for example, that we can check some things automatically and some things we cannot. But Erin was, as I said, the assignment czar can tell you a little bit more about this probably. So Erin, if you want to jump in.
Usually only kicks out like 5 or 6 repositories at this point. And that's usually the people who did the assignment like 4 times in a row, all wrong, and it has way too many commits in the repository for it to have any clue what's going on. Which is not a good sign in general. Anything that's close to right, it usually takes care of at this point. But that's assignment 2. Assignment 3, we can do a moderate amount with, and assignment 4 and on, we just start getting little tiny scripts to help us. Keep trying to make it better, but as he said, we've seen if we make an okay autograder that seems like it should do it all, and we have 400 students, enough of them will break it that it will take us several weeks to fix the autograding. So it's difficult.
And in fact, I think autograders work much better for some other kinds of classes, like purely development classes, for example. So low-level development classes, they work very well, because if you have to develop an algorithm that sorts an array, fantastic. Check out the algorithm, you pass the array, you check the results. The more you go, towards higher, level classes, the harder it becomes to build autograders. But anyways, let me go back to the questions, because also we have our TA meetings in 20 minutes, so we should be done. We'll probably be done, but we should try to be done by then. Next question, just curious about group project team. How do you create them? What would be the size of the teams? And does student can swap teams once team is created? Okay, so how do we create them? We use the survey results. So we try to create teams according to 2 principles. People have the same kind of weekly availability. So we try not to put together somebody who says I can only work on Monday, somebody says I can only work on Friday, for instance. The second thing, we try to spread expertise. So we try to have teams with balanced expertise. So we try not to have a team with 4 super duper Android developers and one team with somebody was never, with 4 people never seen Android. So again, try to spread the expertise so that things are more or less even. Of course, it's an over-constrained problem, so sometimes we have to compromise. And the size of the teams, 3 or 4 people. So we try to have all teams of 4. Some teams are going to be of 3 necessarily for nothing else, for reason of for the numeric reasons, but also because sometimes you cannot just put people. And can students swap teams once the teams are created? Absolutely not. Now, in the sense that it's, because of the way we create the teams, we do not allow students to swap. Also, it would be, as you can imagine, unmanageable to allow students to swap, because it will require inter-team communications, and that's just not something that we can do. So imagine that anything that you could do in a class of 30, 40 people, you cannot do. Many things that you can do in a class of 30, 40 people, you cannot do on a class that is 10 times that size. Project-related question: can we group with people who live nearby us so we can meet in person and work in the same time zone? Haha, you didn't read my welcome message. Just kidding, but in the welcome message we said it. We say that please do not ask us to put you together with people or that are close to you, because we already have too many constraints as it is to create the teams, and so we create them, automatically. We create them basically on our automatically and based on our requirements. So another reason for that is again, for fairness and to kind of be create teams that are homogeneous. We really do based on an algorithm that looks at the survey data, and then we manually intervene to fix possible issues in case some sort of an ideal solution cannot be found. But we cannot also allow people to specify what their teammates will be, because that will really complicate things quite a bit. Again, it's another example of something that you could relatively easily do in a class, but not in a small class, but not in a large class. And by the way, I do not allow that also in my on-campus classes, which are much smaller, if nothing else, because then what ends up happening is that you get everybody working with their buddies, and people don't know anybody, will kind of end up isolated. It will not be the problem here with with this large class, but it's just to tell you that this doesn't happen even in my on-campus classes. For beginners in Java, which book or online tutorial you recommend for fast and easy learning? I would say Linda is a good source. You can go there and watch take courses for free as a Georgia Tech student. So that's I've seen before people being very happy with that. So I will recommend to do that, and then look at there's plenty of tutorials online that you can also take. And assignment 3 will be a good kind of check for that, because if you struggle with assignment 3, and I'm going to say it clearly here, think about your preparedness for the class, in the sense that assignment 2 is mainly done. So the initial assignments are mainly done to make sure that everybody's on the same page with the tool. So assignment 2 is done to make sure everybody is understanding Git correctly, and assignment 3 is basically done to make sure that you know how to use an IDE and that you are familiar enough with Java to take the class. If you find assignment 3 to be a nightmare, you might look back at the requirements for the class and think about that, because you might be in trouble later on. So I just want to mention this, and I want to be honest about it, because that's one of the reasons we added these initial assignments, is because there's sort of checks for whether you satisfy the prerequisites. So it's fine if you don't know Java, but you're familiar with other languages. You know how to program in other languages, because that will take you no time to get up to speed. But if you're really kind of struggling with programming and you find that that's extremely difficult, then you might need a little more time to catch up. So either go full immersion and try to catch up right now, or think about whether you satisfy the prerequisites for the class. Class strict rules feedback. I would love to showcase the project I'm working on for school on my public GitHub account. Why can't we showcase our code on GitHub? Also, contributing an active GitHub public profiles give a good signal to recruiters, hiring managers, etc. So the reason why you cannot showcase the projects you're working on for school on this public GitHub account is because, well, first of all, you cannot do it during the semester in which you're taking the class, because as soon as you put something publicly out there, other students could use it, and that will be a violation of the honor code for both of you. And so both of the students using the we change the assignments every semester, but the assignments are similar, and therefore, if you put it out there, you're basically providing materials that the student might be able to reuse, and that is again problematic from the honors code standpoint. So you're more than welcome to share your project with recruiters in a private way, but putting the code there publicly, it's problematic, and you will be called out if you do it, because we check and we look for these repositories. And again, the reason is because these are assignments that are going to be similar to future ones. So I don't know, Erin and Will. So Will, in particular, I think you looked a lot into the honors code violation issues. So do you want to add something of that?
Well, about the only thing that I can really add in here is that there is in looking at this stuff, I found out that projects you do for an educational institute like Georgia Tech are considered to be owned by the college. So part of the reason why you shouldn't post your code out there is that you don't technically own it. Now, I don't think Alex has a really strong feeling on that from that standpoint, but that is why they consider it to be, I think they go with that because it makes it easier to make the case that it's a violation of the honor code if you post stuff out there. But technically speaking, work that you do for the school belongs to the school, not to you. Not that again matters terribly much, but that is how it's technically held.
It is especially clear for GitHub if it contains any school-provided code, which most of them do.
Yep, exactly. That's another reason a lot of our assignments come with a certain amount of provided code, and so if you start putting it out there and selling it as all your own code, but it's not all your own code, some of it's our code, that could be a problem as well. But the biggest issue is we have, in the time we've been doing this class, we've caught a number of students copying things from each other during the class, from previous semesters, people who didn't notice that the assignment was close but not exactly the same, and turned in the old assignment and wondered why it didn't work anymore. And we do report them to OSI, and we've had some students take zeros and get comments about cheating on their transcript placed by OSI because of it. So and we've gone, there have been times when students who are still in the program but not still in the class have been reported to OSI because they had posted their code publicly, and the current people that copied it from someone, and because it's a violation of the honor code to still have it out there, the old student was reported as well. So I mean, it in theory, in practice probably not, but in theory, even after you graduate, your transcript could retroactively be changed to have a note on it that you participated in illegal work sharing if you put your stuff out there publicly and somebody copies it. The odds of that are low, but it is a possibility.
Away from the more grim OSI parts, I'm not sure how much posting the school assignments really help you as far as building a job portfolio anyways.
That too.
Most of them people have seen variations on. They're very clearly schoolwork. I know I had an interview at one point where they asked me about a GitHub, and I said, here, I've got a couple projects here you can see, but I don't post my schoolwork and I don't post my DoD work. So it's going to be limited. And they actually said that it was nice to hear that. it showed more respect for work I do for them. So I'm not sure how it comes across to everybody. That's probably going to vary. I would look more at doing something like, a little blog about what you're learning. Look to expand it to your own variations and do something that's better presentable. Or, you could even do just like Project Euler work at that point if you're wanting to just post a lot of exercises. And it's almost what it's made for. So.
All right. Go back to the question. Actually, very, very good input. Thank you very, very much. And I tend to agree that that the school, this project or this school code is not probably gonna buy you too much. Something you could do, you could contribute to some other GitHub projects, existing GitHub projects, and I'm sure that actually gets much more attention than a school project. I'm getting a down for maintenance error when attempting to access github.gatech.edu. Do you know when the maintenance will be completed? I just tried and I get a same message, and all I can recommend is to send an email to support@oit.gatech.edu. I have no idea, but with nothing to do with the maintenance of the system. So it's sounds like news to me, and so I have to say that it doesn't happen very often, really. So I'm pretty sure that it's gonna be.
OIT says it'll be back up at midnight Eastern. It's apparently a scheduled maintenance.
Okay, and by the way, actually, that's a good point, because we saw that that will be historical information, but we used to have like a downtime for the submission system, if you guys remember. It was like 2 hours before the deadline, and that was problematic. Luckily, we don't have that anymore. So
yeah, that was T-Square. T-Square is not the bane of our existence anymore.
T-Square is no more. Yeah. Okay, next question. I remember seeing a note about the lecture that we were going to get an update regarding the ID P1L3. The lecture videos were related to Eclipse and we were using IntelliJ. So we actually had a question before, earlier in the office hours about that, and we answered there. And so I will suggest that, in the interest of time, you can just go back and look at the towards the beginning of the office hours, I think, and that's, I answered there. How much help can we ask for or give out to classmates? For example, I was having a problem finishing the GitHub assignment because I didn't complete the final push correctly. I was going to post a screenshot of my network view to ask for help. Also, another student was asking about how to tag it. Is providing the Git command okay in that situation? So Git is a special assignment in the sense that since the assignment is pretty much a sequence of commands, really, even though they're not, completely spelled out. And since the main goal of this is really to have people learn how to do things, we're way more lenient than we will normally be in terms of how to help other people. So it's fine to post a screenshot of your network view. It's fine to ask for help. It's fine to suggest, specific command that needs to be used. Just don't post a complete set of commands that somebody can copy and paste. Also because that will go against really learning how to do things. But this one is an assignment in which you can do that. And also there's really no copying in this assignment because it's stuff that you have to do. The things are different for the future assignments because they're you have to be very careful about what you post. Like, for example, you cannot post fragments of code that are part of a solution. You cannot not ask questions that are too specific. So what I will always recommend is if in doubt, ask privately, and we will make it public if it's not, if it's fine doing so. So just go follow your instinct. Err on the side of being cautious, and you'll be fine. So the general principle here is really that it's fine to help people. It's not fine to share solution of parts thereof. So that's a general rule. And again, the Git assignment is sort of a special one. So feel free to say more for that one. All right, so we answered all the questions, which, by the way, something else I want to mention about Piazza. Sometimes we do our best to keep up with Piazza. So I try to be on Piazza every day or every other day. We have one TA official assigned to Piazza every day. So we normally cover, answer relatively quickly. Sometimes things linger for various reasons. It could be that, the TA in charge of Piazza doesn't know how to answer something, the post is missed, the question is posted as a note instead of the question. So in these cases, feel free to ping us. We're not a hotline, as I mentioned in my welcome message, but feel free to ping us if you posted something and you don't hear anything in kind of a day, in 2 days, let's say. And normally we have 48 hours. That's our limit in which nothing should go beyond 48 hours. And the other thing is, if you have a question that is unanswered, bring it to the office hours, because unless it's private and we cannot answer it here, I don't remember a single case in which we could not we could not answer all the questions during the office hours. So
I remember one.
If you post, you remember one?
Yeah, that
what, the requirements one, or
yeah.
Okay, but that was a special thing, right? Because there was we had a project in which the students were supposed to ask clarification about the requirements during the office hours, and that didn't go. I mean, went well in the sense that we got a lot of questions, but we ended up with like an hour and a half of office hours, and then we had to cut it because we were basically passing out answering questions. So yeah, that's right. We had one instance, but it was really a special case. So normally we answer all the questions.
That proves the rule.
Right. Exactly. Okay, so if there's no other question, then I guess I will wrap it up also, because we have 4 minutes before starting the TA meeting. This is our first TA meeting, just FYI, in which we kind of meet and greet all the new TAs, and we start kind of laying the rules and how things are going to work during the semester. So it's a very important one.
If you talk to any of the new TAs, don't tell them I said this, but this is the point where Alex and Aaron and I have to put on our stern faces so that we can scare all the new ones into thinking we're a lot worse.
I don't think I scare anybody.
Except that we don't scare anybody.
Well, I don't scare anybody.
No, Will scares people, yeah. We don't, but we can put on a... So there's on this happy note, there's a thank you note for the office hour. Well, no, our pleasure. So that's as I said, the office hours are something I really care for, and I also appreciate the fact that Erin and Will are always here with me, helping with the office hours and kind of being a very important part of them. So thank you all for participating, because that's without you we wouldn't have the office hours. And having said that, we'll see you next week for the next office hours, and we'll see you on Piazza with your questions before that. And I'm gonna let Erin and Will say bye, and then we'll stop the broadcast.
So long, everyone.
It's been fun, and we'll see you on Piazza.